Okay, let's get started.
Alrighty.
Welcome to the CubeCast podcast, where the secrets of zeroing are revealed. Today is February 28th, 2015. I'm Mitch, and joined with me is Wafo and Brandon.
Hi.
That listener tagline, by the way, is brought to you by Corey Sikowski.
Dank.
How's everyone doing?
So I'm currently sitting here with Mitch in my room.
This isn't the first time.
Yeah, thanks, Corey, for sending in that listener tagline. If you have a listener tagline, please send that to us at cubecast@gmail.com. And if we like it enough, we'll have it on our website as well as on the show, perhaps.
This episode, we have some pretty interesting stuff happening. We're going to talk quite in depth about the internals of how the WCA works and a lot about the WRC with our disgruntled parent.
That's gross. Disgruntled parent? Is that what you said?
Is this too painful right now? Is this too painful for you?
A little painful.
This is what we go through every single episode.
We have no idea what we're doing. Make it sound alright.
Yeah, it sounds alright in the end.
Yeah, in the end, this is what we go through. This is the pain that we have to go through in order to make a successful episode. Alright,
Okay.
let's go.
So you got the next one?
Yeah. Alright, so we got some housekeeping going on first. We have a puzzler winner, our first one. We got plenty of submissions, but there was only one winner, and a lot of arguments on speed solving. And it's Melanie Hung. Congratulations, you win $20 to the cubicle.us. And thanks for everyone who had submissions, and thank you for the cubicle.us for setting us up with a prize. We also got our RSS feed set up. Hopefully it works. Let us know if it doesn't work, and make sure you can subscribe. You can find the link to the RSS feed on our website, which is cubecast.cubing.net. We also have a brand new montage by the montage master herself, Sarah Strong. Thanks to her. Thanks a lot. Just go onto the website, go onto the episodes list, and it should be listed there under, I think, Season 2. We're also pretty much open to guest suggestions because we want to know who you guys want onto the show.
So we're going to move on to world records, continental records, and national records. The last time that we talked about this was on the 13th of February, and it's currently the 28th of February. The first record that we're going to talk about is at... can you say this one?
I'm just going to guess General Forsamlingen.
2015 in Slagensel, Denmark. A pretty cool world record that was broken. Nathaniel Berg, 5.25 clock WR single. The world record that he broke was standing for a really long time. Do you know how long it was?
The record that was broken by Nathaniel Berg was a record that was set back in 2011.
So now we just got to wait on 2x2 to be broken.
Yeah, basically. Nathaniel Berg also got a 6.21 clock European record average.
Like, it's been the longest drought of a world record for that.
For a while. Just
Yeah.
There have been no records set for a while since.
Yeah, it's been.
Is that the first? That's the first world record of 2015.
It is the first world record of 2015.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. Hey, first world record. Yeah. Hopefully more to come this year, so we can cover it and keep the show going.
Moving on to Pop Toys Summer 2015 in Johannesburg, South Africa.
All right, so Brendan James Gray got a 7.01 Scube African record average, and I'm going to guess Chisto du Vinage, 4.90 Scube African record single, which is pretty cool.
I haven't heard a lot from Africa, so it's really cool.
They did have two competitions with Felix and Mats there, so.
Yeah, I mean, but like, that's Felix and Mats, though.
Yeah.
Like, we obviously would be paying attention to, like, if Felix and Mats were there, but that's just really cool still that, that there's still competitions going on there.
I think it's really cool because it really shows how cubing is starting to be much more of a worldwide thing. Because we've talked before about having worlds in South America, which has been becoming much more developed over the years, and then Africa actually getting some traction and getting decent at a lot of things, which is really cool to see.
Yep. So moving on to the next thing is Wasada Brain Challenge in Shinjuku, Japan. Yu Nakajima got an 849 5BLD ASR, and the Japanese NR of for 3 blind is 33.59. That's the mean of 3 by Oto Ayagi.
Aoyagi?
Yeah, Ayagi.
And then the unofficial world record for the oldest 3 blind solve is held by Hideki Tomiyori for 82 years old.
Good lord.
Yeah, he kind of, I think, broke it himself, like the previous record, which was himself. He actually did 3 blind when he was also 80.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Like,
I don't remember that off the top of my head. That's really impressive.
it was in the thread, so I kind of just like sort of remembered it like out of nowhere. So
that's
Yeah.
cool.
it's still cool seeing like old people going into it. It's fun.
I don't think I've seen any solvers over the age of like
50.
60, maybe, at a competition. So it's cool to see somebody at 82 years old going to a Rubik's Cube competition of all things that they could be doing and doing.
And then doing blind. Doing 3 blind at that.
It's really impressive. Like,
We got La Florida Open 2015 in Santiago, Chile. We got 2 SARs by Raul Lobetti. We got a 10.88 square 1 SAR, and by the same guy, 15.27 square 1 SAR average. The first one was a single.
Yeah, I've been following this guy for like square one stuff for a while now, and he's gotten really fast, and it's just a matter of time that he got these records. Like, he's been posting like low 14 second like average of 100 on square one, and it's really nice to see that he actually got a good average in comp.
all right, so that's all the records that were broken in the past 2 weeks. Now we're going to take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to introduce Kit Clement.
And we're back. Joining us now is Kit Clement, who is actually in the same room, and he's just been sitting there quietly. Now he's moved up his chair a little bit towards the mic.
It's so hard to be quiet when you guys are talking about all these records. I wanted to just jump in and say all my 2 cents on those things.
Oh, yeah? Well, you can.
All my
Wow.
2 cents. I'm a really poor person.
That's fine. That's fine. Everyone here is poor. That's why we had to get to cubicle.us to get his mics.
Nice placement of ad there.
Oh, yeah. No, we try. Real hard.
So, Kit, we just got through 1 day of Basque 5, which is the real reason why you're here. How do you think it's gone so far?
It's been going pretty well. I was a little intimidated by the whole 150-person competition going on here. I've never delegated anything over 100 people. I've had several in like the 80-90 range, but granted, we didn't get the full force of everyone here today. There was not the infestation of all the first-timers, and with 3x3, we had all the kind of the side events today. We'll see how I feel tomorrow.
Yeah, you're gonna be blown away tomorrow.
I believe it.
It's scary. It's straight up scary. Like, for anybody out there who's organized competitions, you'll know full well how difficult it is to have a whole bunch of new competitors at 3x3. But yeah, we got 50 new competitors tomorrow, so I don't know if we're going to try doing some sort of demonstration on how the competition process works. Usually we just kind of let the judges handle it, but we'll see how things need to go.
I've delegated competitions that have fewer than 50 people.
That must be a dream.
You have a cap on it, or no?
No, like Carnegie Mellon last December had 20-some people.
Oh, shit.
The smallest competition I went to was FMC USA.
Yeah.
Oh, that was with like
But other than
7 or something.
Other than that, it's probably like 60.
We should just have every comp be just FMC.
Without a cap on, would you count Mind Sports?
Mind Sports was rather small because they had a 40-person limit,
Yeah, I think so.
but that limit was imposed not because Berkeley necessarily wanted to. That was because of the event that was also part of. But as far as the unbounded competitions go, the smallest one probably maybe 55 people, 55 or 60.
So, Kit, we know that you have a pretty big role in the World Cube Association. So, can you tell us how is it like to be on the WRC?
Oh, the WRC. So you talk about big roles, and then you talk about me on the WRC. That's ironic. So, I mean, I do contribute a bit to the WRC. I was mostly just brought on just because I did a lot of work kind of under the radar with the release of the 2014 regulations. I was kind of brought on to the WRC just to kind of be someone to help out with that. I don't know. It really, my life is kind of taken over since then. So I have not had too much time. There's a lot of discussion going on currently about the 2015 regs, but so that's pretty much my role so far. We're kind of just mostly been doing a lot of discussion, figuring out what direction we want to go with a lot of the issues that we have currently, and we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, what would you say are some of the top issues that are currently existing with the regulations as they are?
Okay, well, the thing that's really, really annoying for me is square one misalignments.
Yeah.
Oh my, so there, for pretty much every puzzle, it's simple to define misalignments as the same before inspection and at the end of the solve. Square one is a weird thing because so we like to have the kind of like misalignments be referenced for both, like, have one place we reference the misalignments in the regulations. But the problem is with square one is that in inspection, you really don't want them to move at all because it's potential that a 30-degree turn could create a new state of the puzzle. But when we do the misalignment check at the end, it can go up to 45 degrees. So it's kind of a weird loophole right now that you're technically not making a move when you turn it 30 degrees. And the fix is not easy, and it's going to make the regulations really convoluted. And that's kind of the biggest problem. It's also figuring out, how do you set up a line that's easy to judge, easy to enforce? It's a really troubling issue. Everyone seems to have a different opinion on how to do it, and they're really, so far, I have not seen a single good solution to this problem.
Ouch.
Have you had like any bad experiences with square one misalignments in competition?
Not my own competitions, but there have been competitions where we have allowed, I believe, I'm kind of going on memory here, so don't quote me on this, but I believe there was a competition where there was a misalignment in inspection, and it was allowed. I can't remember. It might have been DNF'd. Don't quote me on this. This happened, I think, in late 2013 or early 2014, so it's been a while.
Wow. That is certainly a very striking issue.
Yeah, it's kind of a giant loophole and kind of gray area that we don't know what to do with right now. So that's kind of the big problem is when you do a lot of competitions, you run into these weird gray areas where you're just not sure, does this fall on the responsibility of the competitors? Does this fall on the responsibility of the judge? And people really want the regulations to get more concise, but they can't. You cannot get them more concise when there are so many different situations that can come up at a competition, and you need to have an answer to these.
What do you think about having a condensed version of the regulations for competitors who are only doing certain things? Because Sarah brought that up at one point or another, I thought.
Yeah, and there's a reason Sarah hasn't. She tried kind of putting, from what I'm aware, she tried putting a lot of time into creating this kind of reduced set of the regulations, and they're also self-referenced that it's really hard to to condense the regulations to be kind of bite-sized. I think the best thing to do really is the Cubing USA website really does have good, like, first-time competitor tutorials, and they do give you the gist of what's going on. But really, if you're a competitor, you really should know the regulations. You're going to be disadvantaged and not understand how to avoid penalties and all of the like if you don't know the regulations.
And from an organizer's perspective, it makes it really difficult when some people who are on staff either don't know the regulations, don't know how to scramble for certain things, because it's pretty clearly spelled out with how scrambling orientation is supposed to be, for example, how you're supposed to judge for all the +2 penalties, because there are 8 of them, except in the case of clock, where there are only 7.
Yeah.
Which is another issue we could talk about later, or we could talk about that now if you're willing to.
Well, why not? What are we talking about specifically? Misalignment penalties?
Yeah, the misalignment penalties for clock, because every other speed solving event has them, and clock is just kind of the
I actually had a judge come up to me today and ask, "What are the penalties for clock?" And I'm like, "Did you read the regulations?" Like.
So it's interesting you bring it up from this perspective, like the why don't we add misalignment penalties for clock, where I'm kind of the why don't we just get rid of misalignment penalties, period.
Yeah, I wanted to point out that clock was the only one that didn't have one, not necessarily that we had to add one, but that it was just incongruous.
Yeah, it is. I think the tricky part is it's so hard to draw the line because there's several different unit vectors within a clock and how you can make the wheels adjust. And where is this a +2? Is that a +2? It kind of falls in the line of like how we used to do puzzle defects, where it used to be, if it unambiguously could be put together, like, there's no way you could put it together in an unsolved state that it was considered solved. Dear God, that was confusing to interpret.
Yeah.
Especially with like all these new cubes now that pieces disassemble in the weirdest way, and it's like, is this now unambiguous? I don't know.
How ambiguous.
Yeah.
Right?
Or the corners that come apart. I think there was
3-part corners.
Yeah, so I think there was one case where a corner, like one stalk came off.
What the how does that even happen?
I don't know, but
That happens. I've had that happen.
Yeah, so like it pops and a stalk comes off, and you're like, is this is this unambiguously put back together, or just reassembling the corner? Is that not a given? Because I don't know. There's so many gray lines with that. I'm so glad we got rid of it and just made it now you can have up to one piece with one sticker only.
Yeah.
It's so much easier. And even then, there are still some gray areas that come up. Nothing comes to mind right now, but man,
I'm pretty sure there will be.
Just have I know that this is also controversial too, but some shift towards it's solved or it's not solved would be a nice change. Either the pieces are together and the cube is not misaligned. Solved.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense, because trying to define all these misalignments, especially in the square one case, it gets to be I feel like personally over the years getting so many +2s and DNFs, I honestly I wouldn't really mind if we didn't have +2 penalties for misalignments. How do you feel about having the other +2 penalties in general for all the other stuff, like timer, false starts and stuff?
Oh, you have to have them. I think the problem is they're not enforced very regularly.
Yeah, do you think it's feasible to try enforcing all of them if they all happened in one cycle? Or multiple random?
Well,
Brandon has first hand.
I've done this before.
Yes.
Yeah, you're a terrible person. So
I have to let the judge know beforehand. It's not like I went in there and was like, yeah, I'm going to see if they catch this. No, if I'm going to get a +16 penalty or plus N penalty where N is even and less in between like 2 and 16 inclusive, I'll let the judge know. But for the most part, I'll be like, yo, I'm going to get 16 seconds penalty on this. You might not catch them all because you are a new recruit to Berkeley Cube Club. That's just what it is.
Shots fired.
Yeah, but I had somebody ask me what all the misalignments were, what all the +2 penalties were very recently, in fact, and I was able to give them, and the fact that some people just don't know certain ones kind of makes me think that it might not be that feasible to judge all of them, or especially if people don't know all of them.
Well, it's just that it's not that people don't know them, I feel. It's more that people just don't watch for them. Often, especially what I really noticed today on one hand is that a lot of judges, I had to point out to them that the competitors were still touching the cube as they stopped the timer. There was one new competitor that had 3 straight times where we told him exactly what the penalty was. He stopped the timer while the cube is still releasing the cube out of his hand, and his first 3 solves were all +2 for that. And he finally learned, but it was just like the judge wouldn't have given him the penalty in the first place if it weren't for me. I think it's just that people aren't paying attention. Judges need to pay more attention, really.
What do you think about 2 seconds as kind of the go-to now for stuff like that?
For penalties, you mean?
Yeah, for penalties. Like, because every penalty that we have is 2 seconds. How do you feel about 2 seconds?
I don't know. It's a penalty.
It's completely arbitrary, but
it is.
Do you think that 2 seconds is enough to really disincentivize people from getting them? Because I think it works pretty effectively. For
certain events, it doesn't really. Like for feet, I think a lot of people +2 feet all of the time. Like I do this.
Oh, for misalignment?
Yes, I will purposely not do the last move because I know that I can solve the cube quicker by just not doing the last move.
Hey, let's just get rid of misalignment penalties. Then everything's fine.
Yeah.
This is a very controversial.
I'm all for removing it, to be honest. Like, I just really want just a definitive solve state, because it's just so much more simpler to keep track.
I agree. Yeah. You see, the thing is, the more you start talking about all these inconsistencies, the more you just really want to simplify the rules. And, I understand that it's not the best from a, we want to be generous to competitors perspective or whatever, which I think is where a lot of these come from. I think that many of these regulations are designed so that, even someone who might not totally know the regulations, they have a pretty big safety net to avoid, like, DNFing an average.
Yeah.
But... I think there comes a time where there's just too much gray area to deal with this to try to, be so accommodating. Just know the regulations.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. It's just things should be simpler. Considering that the entire cubing community has expanded around the world, it's blowing up everywhere. There's a lot of probably lost in translation sometimes, things that are getting out of hand. I think that making it simple,
That's the hugest issue, too, is how to keep things consistent, when you have regulations translate into other languages. A lot of issues come up because of, one of the biggest things. There was very recently a long discussion about how your hands should be on the timer when you start. Mm-hmm. Because it says with fingers on the timer, which is incredibly vague. It should be interpreted as there should be more than one finger, part of your finger touching the timer. And a lot of so I'm not sure if this was a translation error or just how they think it should be error, but a lot of places in China were interpreting it as fingertips. You couldn't have your fingers go over the timer.
That was probably a translation error, I feel like.
I don't think it was. I think it was also just a way they were enforcing it, because I think that there is a sensible reason to make it fingertips, is so that all competitors have their hands, behind the timer, not touching the cube. There's an equal distance, I suppose, from where your hands have to go to pick up the cube. It started actually because of Jay McNeil's 5-something solve.
591.
The 591.
How
that was
he had his hands really close together, and the fingertips were
Yeah, so he had just enough fingers on the timer, and the cube was right in between his hands. So he could get a faster pickup, and some delegates thought that should have been a +2. So that, I think, is part translation, part how people want to enforce the regs. So it's a very frustrating thing to deal with, but it's something, you really, keeping conditions fair and equal for everyone across the world is what we're here for.
That's such a hard task that you got set in front of you there.
Yeah, deal with it.
Speaking of dealing with it, this will bring us to our next point: the 2015 venue for U.S. Nationals. So I remember that you had a pretty big role in one of the potential venues for.
Yeah. So this is my first year being on the organizational staff for U.S. Nationals.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So I got added mostly because I did a lot of work for 2014 Nats. I was the head score checker for Nationals.
I'm sorry.
What do you do for the score checker?
So score checker, after every competition, of course, you have to check the scorecards to make sure that the results you submit are correct. And for Nationals, when you have 500-600 competitors, it becomes a very grueling task.
You just basically go down cube comps and match scorecard with times?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we had about 20 people doing it, and it took a few hours.
Oh wait, 20 people doing it only took a few hours?
Yeah.
Wow.
We crunched through it.
That's impressive.
We did it every night. So when we came back to from the venue, we would go to our hotel, sit down, and just crunch out all the score checking. We had the Nationals staff provided us with some money to get food for everyone that came and helped, so we kind of incentivized people to come do it. So that was kind of my big role there I ended up being almost like an organizer on call at times too, just to be I was running around trying to deal with things. Mostly because I was put in the long room for a long time, but they had plenty of people I got stuffed in there. So I ended up kind of doing other on-call tasks. So they were just kind of like, well, you're de facto organizer. So that happened. But the other reason they made me organizer as well is because I was looking into moving Nationals this year somewhere in the Midwest. That was kind of my goal. However, that didn't pan out. we had a gig kind of lined up with the Ford Convention Center in Dearborn, Michigan. It's kind of right between the airport, or it's right very close to the airport of Detroit, actually. So it would have been actually a pretty ideal venue. Unfortunately, when we kind of got to the talking with them, they were surprised to hear that we were not a nonprofit organization. It's not that we don't make, because really the World Cube Association, we don't make money. But the problem is we aren't a real organization. We are just a website with some results listed.
Yeah. And is that just because nobody's put their address on it?
Yeah, the big problem is that we don't have like an office or an address to centralize the WCA anywhere. Most people that run this stuff, they're there's a few adults, but the most people that like really put their heart and soul into this, or there are a lot of people put their heart and soul into this, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of us that are college students or just recently graduated that are really just bouncing around all the time, and you can't put an address down and then find out a year or two later you're moving. So and a lot of people just aren't willing to put down their address as the real WCA. So
I'm surprised that it wasn't made originally into like Tyson Now's backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, backyard seems to be a very convenient place to organize stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Just like have all the mail like addressed to Tyson Now's backyard, USA.
Yeah.
It's like letters to Santa, straight up.
Yeah, and it's also just a lot of paperwork, a lot of money that would go into. We'd have to do a lot more upkeep and have people dedicated to doing that work that nobody really wants to do. We have to prove our nonprofit status, so we have to do a lot more record keeping of like money and things like that, and it's just not worth it. Yeah, it's. So it could be interesting to see if maybe not the WCA becomes a nonprofit, but maybe the U.S. Nationals team could become a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Or something like that, because that is a more centralized group that could be easier to mobilize in that sense. But
yeah, like Cubing USA.
Yeah, making that somewhat of an organization. I don't know, but I think that right now we're able to still get venues. We're able to it was unfortunate that my venue in Michigan didn't pan out.
Yeah.
So
that would have been ideal for me. It would have been nice because it's just like 4 hours from where I am right now, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, it would have been like 30 minutes for me.
Yeah, look at you, Mr. I live in Michigan, so it's fine. So, what kind of details do you guys look for as an organizational team when it comes to venues for a big competition like Nationals?
Well, cost is a big one. So I actually did look into stuff at the University of Michigan as well. The cost was the driving factor into why we couldn't reserve anything there. As well as they weren't big enough to sell us. Like if it were, there was a venue that was kind of big, but we weren't sold on the size and it was too expensive. So we were like, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, too small and too expensive kind of.
It's a terrible combination.
Yeah.
Some other good things that we learned from 2014 is you really want to have a venue that has lodging close by, if not is the lodging.
Yeah, well, we can't Vegas again because very recently it was announced that the Riviera will be closed for major renovations. They're basically
no joke. We were one click away from the Riviera as our venue in 2015.
Oh my god,
we were so close to. We had pretty much the contract emailed to us to get the Nationals there again. But we did not do it. And if we had done it, they would have either paid us for the damages or they would have relocated us to...
They probably would have relocated, I feel like.
Yeah. So it would have still happened in Vegas somehow. Yeah. It would have still happened. It would have just been a logistical nightmare for us. But in the end, the Riviera I don't think it gets much worse than the Riviera in Vegas. So if we were get relocated in Vegas, we would probably have a pretty nice venue. So, but the venue that we do have this year is incredibly nice. So how we found it, we were searching through, it was Event Planner or EventFinder.com. I don't know. It was some venue planning website. It's kind of like wedding planners or something, but taking out the wedding, I guess. So yeah, we found we kind of just did a search for venues, and it was in all these different places came up that were kind of within our reach that seemed to have our size. But Hilton Head was, you wouldn't believe it was a pretty good value.
It was.
Yeah. So that was kind of that and the fact that it's a terribly nice place to go in the summer and has, all the things we're looking for in terms of, space for competitors and being really close to the venue. You will have to walk outside to go from your hotel room to the venue.
Outside.
But it's you get to walk by the beach, then, wrap around to where the venue is, where they have their meeting space. So it's not all bad.
Yeah, and it's a resort of all things, on an island. Come on. Literally, come on.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are complaining about costs, too. So, in terms of just, hotel, just get a lot of friends. The hotels have so many beds, a lot of, pull-downs. You can fit pretty comfortably, 6 people in a lot of those rooms. And when you divide it up that far, it's not so bad.
And then with all the other floor space that people are inevitably going to have, you could have rooms with 12 or 18 people in them.
That would be.
Don't tell me that. I'm an organizational staff. No.
So
you want to get started on regional competitions?
Yeah. So topic has been on the CubeCast. We talked about this before.
It's been on every episode, basically.
Every episode.
Yeah.
But now that we have somebody who's very involved with large competition planning and is currently in the process of delegating a rather large competition. Of course, CubeCast has been really adamant about the topic, but what do you think about having large competitions that are comparable in size, comparable to U.S. nationals, but on more of a regional scale, having similar organizational properties?
Well, nationals is enough for me, so I don't think I'd be interested in doing a mini nationals every year too. But it does seem like an interesting system to have some sort of regional based thing. I think that it would take a really dedicated staff that's kind of not part of the current national staff to be able to do it. Just because nationals really is quite a job to put on. You finish one nationals and, you probably have already been starting looking into venues the next year. So,
yeah.
It's, finding a good, dedicated group of people that can really centralize, mobilize, and, focus on getting everything done in time and making sure it's done right is tough.
Yeah.
It's really
definitely
tough. So, it would take the right group of people to be able to do it. And even then, it's just a name. Just calling it, U.S. East or U.S. West or U.S. Midwest. It's just a name in a competition. If you want to slap that name on your competition, go ahead, and maybe see if you get the swarms of people coming in. Have fun with that. I think that really, regional competitions are happening. They're just on a very micro level.
I think what we're more trying to talk about is having let's say have a Midwest one and a Pacific one, but we use the same scrambles for each.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's another interesting concept too, and I'm actually that intrigues me more, because I think that, you wouldn't be able to do every event in a weekend, and in fact, you probably would only be able to do a handful of events, but I think that it could happen, and my idea for that is you would have, let's say we pick 5 events to do 2, 3, 4, 5, one hand. I don't know, the lamest competition ever, but whatever. So what we could do is just have you have a scramble group for each location. So it doesn't matter, you don't have to worry about that synchronization at that point. Maybe a scramble group or 2 for each location. Because really trying to synchronize a large group of people is going to be ridiculous,
especially with such a just location difference.
Oh yeah,
and getting everything to line up as far as events go exactly, because if you have competitions that are 3 hours on the clock apart.
Oh yeah,
it makes it super difficult in order to coordinate between all the people. Just FMC USA was hard enough.
Oh, I know.
Caltech.
Mothering Caltech. I'm sorry. You gotta censor that out.
Just skip over that. I have a censor bleep that I use for this. So.
Yeah, Caltech, they were running behind and they only had 2 people for FMC USA competing.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So
Wait, they were running behind for 2 people?
Okay, so the issue is they didn't have somebody to proctor for their attempt.
Yep.
So it was like
okay.
and somebody else that was actually doing the attempt, and they just didn't have somebody to proctor. So they had to find somebody really quick, and it put us behind just a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just trying to keep things in sync is difficult. So I think that if you're going to do this for like a more widespread events, you really have to have just different groups for the first rounds at each location. But then what you could do is say, so like say we have 8 stations in Michigan and you have 10 stations in San Jose, and then we have another, like maybe in Boston they have another 8 stations. What you could do for like second rounds, or let's say we do 2 rounds of all these events. Then the second round we can have it be synchronized. And how you would have to do it then is somehow where that all the competitors are getting the same scrambles at the same time. So you'd even have to like say like, okay, 2x2, let's have scramble 1, everybody start at 2:00. Scramble 2, everybody start at like 2:05, or something like that.
What if competitors aren't necessarily on board with that idea? Because everybody's starting at the same time. The kind of the point of competitors sitting there and not being ready for their solve and doing it anyway, it doesn't sit very well in my head.
What do you mean by that?
You ask, "Are you ready?" And is it still a 60-second thing?
Well, so I mean, you don't call the competitor up until like it's to their time to be called up. The whole point of this is for example, the number of people advancing to the next round is going to be different in every location.
Yeah.
We have a lot of good 2x2ers in the Midwest. And as a result, if we do a 2x2 final, we'll probably have a lot of them.
We'll probably have 0 people.
Yeah. So, and in that case, you'll have problems where it's going to take us a long time to get through Solve 1, where other people are going to blow through it. And you have to worry about, people sharing scrambles.
Yeah.
It becomes more of a concern because at the competition, it's really easy to tell when people are, sharing information with each other. But then if one venue gets really far ahead and, they say, oh, lol, 4-move solution on Scramble 3, and they send that over to, my venue.
Yeah.
And then that's the huge problem. And making sure everyone that would start on the same time really kind of alleviates that.
You have to schedule you have to schedule like a very short amount of time for each individual attempt, which is probably completely
that's too hard, I'd say.
That's still not worth it.
Yeah, it could be worth it. It could be worth it from just like an interesting sort of perspective of can we have synchronized
like a proof of concept sort of thing.
Yeah, like I think it would actually be kind of cool to run a competition like this just to say that we can do it. Kind of like how we ran FMC USA as kind of like we can do a multi-location comp. That was cool. And really, I loved FMC USA. That was so much fun.
I DNF'd. It was awful. I still have a solution somewhere around here.
I was painfully close to DNFing. I turned in my first and second solution with less than 10 seconds to go.
Ooh.
Like, I was writing down the last moves.
Oh, ouch.
Within the last 10 seconds, and both times, I had no idea if they were right. I had to wait for them to be graded. It was so painful.
Yeah. So go back to like the whole venue thing with regional competitions. Do you think that finding a venue for nationals would be much expedited if regional competitions were a thing? Granted that the venues regional competitions were big enough and had the same.
You're saying this is like a pre-nationals in a sense, or
not quite a pre-nationals, but like. As far as you'd have a whole bunch of venues that have been tried, and you can really assess what would be good of those.
I mean,
or something completely different entirely.
It's kind of hard to say because I know if I were to kind of contribute a venue, the one that I would use would be nowhere near the level of a nationals venue. It would work fine for a large regional competition here, but there's no way we could work it as a nationals venue.
Hmm.
So Nathan Soria's not Scube world record. I think it was about 1.71 single, but the issue with it was that it was a 6-move scramble, and it's believed that when the cube was going from the scrambling table to the judge, there was a move that was done on it that made it from 7 moves optimally to 6 move optimally. Do you think we should allow video evidence to invalidate solves, or should we not allow that?
I mean, in general, I think the WCA is pretty generous about their rulings. They want to make things right. They want to make things fair. So I think that use of video evidence is really a good thing, and that, you know, competitors, it can suck, but, you know, if the information's out there, you know, we want to. This is not a community that should be built on, you know, fully competitiveness and doing whatever you can to get to the top. It's really more a community, and I know if it were me, I wouldn't be able to live with a record I didn't deserve. Mm-hmm. And I hope that other people, you know, feel the same way. So I think that use of video evidence really is a good thing. And in general, there's a lot of things that have been overturned in terms of misscrambling recently. You look at Akash Rapella's 6.91 single that was overturned. But just you know, it seems like that the overall opinion of the board currently is that if there's nothing the competitor could have done, and it's a solve that could have been, or a scramble that could have been received, there's no reason to DNF it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the approach that's been taken. However, Nathan's scramble couldn't have been received.
Yeah. So it makes more sense for...
Mm-hmm. Especially considering that he went through the optimal solution, even though he did kind of turn out and back, I believe.
Well, no, he did 7 moves to the skew, but the way... Yeah. If he had executed it so that he canceled through the sledge, it would have been 6.
Yeah, because Yeah. It canceled through this. Right, yes, that's what it was. If it was like the sledge continued the previous move that he was doing. Yeah, okay.
It's really tough to see something like that. I had a chance to look through that scramble. Obviously would not have done nearly the same thing, just because...
You know. I haven't looked at the scramble myself, but I heard that it was like the 7 move solution was not obvious.
No, the 7 move was not.
But the 6 move was very obvious.
Yes. It really goes to show just how difficult. I guess it shows like how difficult and how easy Cube can be. Like, it's one move away.
It kind of also shows how hard it is to one look that puzzle. When one move makes you completely change your perspective.
Oh, literally. Well, because I think it's the only deep cut puzzle we have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all 6 sides are affected on Skew with every turn, and that changes literally everything about how you perceive the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes it really tricky.
All right. Also talking about puzzles that not necessarily are standard. Going back to clock, there was a world record that was set for that we talked about earlier, and
with Nathaniel Berg.
Yeah, with Nathaniel Berg. There was some debate on speed solving about whether or not the reaction to the clock world record was an overreaction. What do you think about that?
It's really a case-by-case thing. For what it seemed, the competition was not like a every station was in effect sort of thing. Not many people were solving. I think there's a lot of context into what constitutes, like, you know, just like a major distraction or overreaction to competitors. Because there was really no one solving in his immediate neighborhood when I saw the video. So I think that, you know, it would have, you know, you have to consider the context. I think that, yes, if in some context that could have been an overreaction, but, you know, at the same time, are you going to tell someone, no, you can't react to the fact that you just set a world record and a European record? I mean...
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mitch, how was it during your 625?
It wasn't actually a very big reaction. It was just like, whoa, he got this solved. That's about it. Like, it wasn't a record, so not very many people were like, oh, crap, that's, like, actually a record, but...
Yeah, I thought I remember, like, people kind of hyping it up for, like, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And then people were just, like, kind of muttering about it after that.
It's more of, like, people were amazed that two people got 6s back-to-back, because Kevin Costello got the 6 right before me, and same scramble, I got another 6. Mm-hmm. And people were just really amazed that 2 people got 6s. But, like, going back to the clock world record, if those people were affected by that solve, they can just ask for the resolve.
Yeah, the only thing you have to worry about that is, you know, I think that there weren't many high-level clock solvers at that competition, but you have to consider, you know, what if, you know, say, you know, Mitch and I are both really good clockers and we could easily break world record. Okay.
Nice joke.
got second today. You got second. You know, let's say we both have potential to break world record on a scramble, and I go first, and I do it, and I start celebrating, and you're in the middle of your solve, and it distracts you. You know, it's like there's always going to be people potentially doing a solve that you just got world record on, and you could be affecting them. So there is that to consider as well.
At World Championships, especially, like, you would see Felix do a solve, and he'd get like a 5, and then he's all the way at one end of the competition, and then maybe Motz is at the other end, and he gets the same scramble and he does the same solution or something, but he gets thrown off because of that reaction all the way down there. What would we do in that kind of a situation?
That's tough. I mean, I do agree that, you know, you can always give resolves. We actually had a giant miscue at our last Michigan competition in January, where we found out that one of the light switches will go off if you just lean on it. And it was
that happens a lot at Berkeley. That happens a lot.
Such a problem.
Yeah. Well, no one's ever leaned against the wall back there, but it's like one of these, like, it's not even a physical switch. It's just if your hand waves over it.
Ooh.
It's one of these weird switches. So the person was just leaning against the wall there and turned off the lights, the entire room. It was like near black, except for the doors that were open.
Oh, that's
so we had a lot of
disturbing.
re-scrambles to give for that.
Some people might be able to take advantage of it in the wrong way.
You think that somebody would try to overreact to a solve and then throw off like their rival competitor?
No. On the other end, like if somebody gets a world record on a particular scramble and somebody else and as they're celebrating, somebody else gets a really really bad result, they can say no, I was thrown off by the distraction, even if it really didn't affect them.
For me, like, I do have one experience of being distracted, and it was at Worlds, and I don't remember if you guys remember this, or I don't know if you guys know this, but who was the guy who threw the 7x7 at the ground?
I can't remember.
That happened?
Yeah, I think it was Michal Halchuk.
Yeah, that sounds right.
He threw his 7x7 directly on the ground after 7x7 final because he didn't break the world record, and the pieces pelted me. Like, they literally, like, landed on me, and at the time I didn't realize, maybe I should get a resolve for this, but, like, that actually caused me to get a bad solve just for the pieces landing on me.
Yeah, I would have thought I would have popped my own cube, and I was like, wait, that's not my cube.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Is that an overreaction? Would you say?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it kind of just brings it back to, like, whole competition decorum, just not to, like, act like a jack.
If you don't know the context of, like, Nathaniel's solve, where he, like, you know, he was just trying to break ER and then was, oh, wow, that was my 5th solve and it's world record. Whoa. So that's, I think, what caused, like, kind of the prolonged reaction, because he was first reacting to ER and then to the world record. So, don't be a jack.
Yeah, so as a delegate, that is your official statement on the matter?
Let's not call that official.
All right. Before our next commercial break, you want to just, like, so you're moving somewhere for your, like, PhD, right?
Yeah, so right now, actually, part of the reason I am in California for Basque right now is I'm on my way to Portland to visit a PhD program there. I also got into a PhD program in Athens, Georgia for University of Georgia. So it's very likely I'll be in one of those two places next year. So new competitions and new places. James Hildreth just got appointed a candidate delegate today.
Yeah.
In Michigan.
Really?
Yeah, I just got the email today that he is in the process of getting appointed there. So Michigan comps are not going to suffer. If anyone in Michigan is listening to this, we're going to, we'll have people going strong there as well. But moving on out and branching out in the U.S.
Yeah, and I heard that Casey Bernsteiner and Sean Collins became delegates now.
Yeah, they got upgraded. Not that there's really a difference.
Yeah.
I think that the only reason they have a difference between candidate delegate and delegate is just because it makes it easier to say goodbye to a candidate delegate if, we find out that the appointment was not the correct thing.
Yeah, I suppose.
Because it's really the whole. I don't know if anyone's familiar with, like, the system of appointing delegates, but if you have someone to appoint, you suggest that person to your senior delegate, and the senior delegate might know nothing about this person. Especially, like, because in the U.S. it's not such a big deal because we're a pretty, small landmass relative to some of these other areas where it's like, East Asia.
It's massive.
Yeah, so the senior delegate might know nothing about this person. So the candidate system is really to make sure that people don't make bad appointments.
Yeah.
So in reality, I'm just kind of explaining that. There's no difference between a candidate and a real delegate. It's just kind of that upgrade is kind of we like what you're doing.
Yeah, so we can expect more competitions from you in more places?
Yeah, I've been going around. As you can tell, I'm in California right now.
Yeah. All right, and with that takes us to our second commercial break, and we'll be back very shortly with some listener questions. The CubeCast podcast is brought to you by thecubicle.us, trusted by speedcubers and puzzlers worldwide. Check them out at www.thecubicle.us.
All right, and we're back. Let's move on to some listener questions. We got a bunch of, one particularly long but really interesting question by Corey that is actually really good, and it highlights kind of how things are going to move on into the future of cubing. So, without ado, who wants to read it?
Let's have Kit read it.
Okay. All right.
Nobody expected that.
With speed cubing's rapid increase in popularity, competitor limits are becoming more and more common. Even Worlds has a competitor limit this year. I feel like competitor limits, or at least extremely low cutoffs in events including 3x3, will be necessary in the future with the rate that cubing is growing if we want to keep the same number of events and rounds at local competitions. Perhaps 100 competitor limits will be commonplace, and registration could fill up in a matter of days. How do you feel about this? Do you feel that the WCA or ever will be prepared for this growth? Do you think it's fair or unfair for competitions to have prerequisites or qualifications, at least for regional and world championships?
That's big.
Yeah, it's a lot of things to cover there.
Yeah, okay. So, no, we're not ready for this. Let's just put it out that way. So, there's a lot of growth right now, obviously. It's hard to predict when you get large competitions and how it's... Yeah, where do people come from?
We know that firsthand.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible the growth that cubing has, which is both a very good. It's a good problem to have. I would not like to be in the situation where we are losing competitors. No, I mean, really, you don't want to be in a position where you're on every year getting losing people at your competitions. It doesn't look good for the future in that sense.
Yeah, I remember the Texas speed cubing community was very. It was thriving. It was like alive and well, and then it kind of just there were just no more competitions there. Just everything kind of petered out, and then Sean brought it back with Houston winter 2011 or no, it's not 2011, 2012, and look where he is now. I suppose. Yeah,
they're doing quite a bit now. But yeah, so back to this question. So, it's really tricky. Eventually. Nationals might be approaching, if you uncap it, we could be approaching potentially 1,000 people that want to attend this competition.
Can we, what do you think? Do you think there will be, qualifications to get into nationals?
Yeah, so that's actually something we're throwing around as an idea. It's not something, of course, we're doing for this year for nationals, but it's something that, some sort of qualification system for nationals could be something that we see in the coming years. It's something that we've thrown out as just because, especially when you consider how crowded Liberty Science was as a venue, and just you can't just keep finding bigger rooms with cubing. Eventually, it becomes too logistically difficult to have people running across the room and trying to organize something of that size. It's just there comes a point where you just can't have a 1,000 or more person competition just because it's
What's been the best idea that's been thrown around with qualifications? Has it been no first time competitors type of thing, or certain sub end times for something?
Yeah, it's tricky. We're thinking it might require some sort of previous competition experience. That's just one idea. I'm not sure if I totally like that because you want to give people a chance at least. But maybe, we used to have qualification rounds. They were only removed recently just because they weren't being used.
Yeah, nobody is since 2010.
Yeah, but qualification rounds could be like just even the old style and how we were using them could be useful in, just having a quick best of 2 round for those who haven't competed before, and then taking those, taking as many people that we have room for in that qualification round. And that could do a lot to save some time.
What do you think about potentially implementing the optional regulations in Article Z for stuff like that?
Particularly which one?
The ones where that can guarantee future rounds.
Yes, that's another interesting thing too. It almost kind of makes things a qualification round, but it counts towards the number of rounds you can hold, which is tricky.
Yeah.
Because nationals, we typically hold 4 rounds of 3x3. But you can't hold any more after that. So if you use 1 round as currently your qualification round, where you pre-advance people to the second round based on certain criteria, then that means they have 1 less round to do get a 3x3 average.
Well, they just lose out on 3 solves basically.
Well, 5 if we did a first round average of 5.
Well, would that qualification round even count for anything?
Well, so currently, what we're talking about currently, the WCA doesn't have qualification rounds, but there's an Article Z, an optional regulation that allows you to pre-qualify people to the second round.
Okay,
if you so choose to do that. The issue right now is CubeComps does not support that article. I'm pretty sure, so it'd be very difficult currently to get that set up. Maybe it does, and I'm just not aware because I've never had to do this before, but I don't think there's any way that it is currently set up for that, and with CubeComps kind of being the gold standard right now for results, that would need to be a change. So this is kind of all stuff you have to consider, is that any sort of change in how you do qualifications like this, you really have to change the infrastructure and the regulations that go along with this too, which is tricky. So I think some sort of system for nationals like that could be more commonplace. In terms of these 100 competitor limits, that's something you already see in some parts of the world.
Yeah. Us right here.
Well, yeah, but I mean, where they fill up instantly. Even.
Oh,
yeah, because this at least people had plenty of time before the competitor limit was reached. It was it was a couple weeks before, but you had plenty of time to register. I feel if you wanted to.
The Berkeley competition, last week, the cap was at 50, and it filled up. Filled up in 4 days.
Yeah. Well, and if you look at the UK, they had I think it's Welcome to Guildford. I think it's that competition. They what they do is they plan the date for the registration to open. Mm-hmm. They say this is the date it opens, so you can plan ahead to go on and register then. And I think well more than half the seats were taken, or spots were taken in a few hours.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. I think, if you're a UK Cuber and you know more about this, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember reading topics on speed solving and how it was just exploding.
I remember seeing Robert Yau's post saying, we're about to open this, so go here and it'll be open and you can sign up. And I was imagining that people were going to pretty much sign up immediately if they were really anticipating going.
Oh, yeah.
That was a couple days ago, right?
Yeah, a few days ago or something. Yeah. And it's tricky. I really don't know how you meet this, especially in areas right here with Basque, where you have just such a high demand, and it's hard to keep meeting that on a consistent basis.
It's impossible.
Do you feel with the rapid growth, let's say you had 1,000 people for the same competition, do you think this will actually spark the idea of splitting up, nationals into regionals, going back to regionals?
I mean, at the same time, you'll get a lot of people that'll just go to both anyways.
Yeah. No, there will. Yeah. Well, that will just.
So I'm not sure if it really reduces the size of the. I mean, it will. It will definitely reduce the size, but it's tough. I have to deal with a lot as an organizer or delegate with people that try to register or ask me if they can register days after the deadline has closed, and I really think that in that case, it's it's definitely fair to set a date where you need to start planning. However, sometimes limits get filled 2 or 3 weeks in advance, and you just don't know if you can make it. For example, Summit City Open, I didn't know that I was going to be able to make it until Thursday before I left to go, 2 days ago, because my exam got moved I thought I was going to have an exam the week I got back from break, but now I don't. So, stuff changes on a dime. People can suddenly not go. Some people now can suddenly go. And it's, that's kind of the tough part is you might miss out on competitions you otherwise could have gone to. I don't think that's the most fair thing, but it's better to have competitions than to not. And I think that if you have the option, say, you don't have the best venue and you have to cap it at 80 people, is it better to have an 80-person limit competition than no competition at all? I say yes. Combating this growth is as easy as just having competitions more frequently. Because if you keep churning out competitions, people aren't going to be able to go to all of them. People will start to say, well, I went to the one that was 2 or 3 months ago. I won't go to this one. Or you'll get a lot of regulars, but at the same time, you might dilute the pool.
Yeah, you want to have basket 6 next week?
That's okay.
No 3x3. No 3x3.
Oh, no 3x3? Can we do 3 rounds of FMC mean?
Please.
Let's do it.
9 hours total of
We're sitting,
Yo, I'd be game. Fly me over.
can we go home yet?
That's we after the fourth one.
Fourth one, yeah. Straight up.
Next question. Do you want to get onto that? Despite the fact that you are Clementine, Brest claims not to have eaten you at U.S. Nationals. Can you confirm this?
I don't appear eaten. However, Brest, if you would like to eat me, I will submit myself.
Oh my god. Okay, next question. What's it like trying to balance cubing, delegating, and your master's program right now?
Yeah. Really, my program itself is the classes I take is actually not my biggest time commitment. My biggest time commitment is more my teaching and my research of teaching. So if you weren't aware, I'm the head graduate student instructor for the largest course on University of Michigan's campus. We teach this current term. We have 2,167 students.
Holy Father!
Yeah, there are 6 lectures and 68 discussion sections.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so I get to coordinate all of that. So that sucks a lot of my time up, but it's so much fun. I love doing it.
I thought you were just going to say it sucks.
No, I love it.
Cubing organization is the one that sucks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because they actually kind of have parallels in terms of organization. There's a lot of, scheduling that goes on. I have to build a schedule for 33 different GSIs to teach and organize all of that. It's a lot like scheduling a competition, really. So it's kind of funny how that kind of logistic stuff seems to overlap. But how do I balance it? I don't sleep.
Hey, you and me both.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's... cubing, I think I have really put on a back burner. The only event I kind of actively practice at this point is FMC, which is just kind of also my hangout time, chill with, my friends on Skype and in that sense. Delegating's nicer now. It was really rough at first because I kind of inherited a region that was on the down, Koei itself.
Yeah.
We were losing a lot of organizers. I kind of essentially took over for Jim Mertens in the area because he's trying to, on the tail end of finishing up his PhD program. So that's kind of my role, is I kind of picked up the entire Midwest. Mike Huey has started to delegate a few competitions, which has been, much appreciated, including the Summit City, as well as Cube of Dreams. It's like Field of Dreams pun because it's in Iowa. I forget what it's exactly called. So he's been picking up a little bit of slack, but for a good year or two, I delegated every single competition in the Midwest. And a lot of these organizers were new organizers too, so I had a lot of showing people the ropes on how to be an organizer and stuff like that. But it's starting to pay off. The work has really come down because, the organizers I have know, I just tell them, hey, make the website, let me know when it's ready. Mm-hmm. And, hey, do this, let me know, and I'll look it over and things like that. So, yeah, really, I think it's become a lot easier to balance at this point. It was very tough this time last year, though.
Of all the competitions you've delegated, which two do you think would be on the opposite ends of the spectrum as far as organization goes?
What do you mean opposite ends of the spectrum? Really good organization, really bad organization?
Or just different styles of organization?
Ooh. Okay. Good question. Very good question. So, probably on one opposite end of the spectrum. Let's see. I have to really think about this one. So the thing is, most of the competitions I've delegated are, my guidance. So they end up being very similar because I'm the one who's, I run a tight ship. So I have I kind of have a large influence on first-time organizers and how things are run. Man.
But how's it like coming here where we already kind of have...
Yeah, it's definitely different here because as a delegate, I get to relax a bit more than I normally do, which is nice. I do appreciate that. Whereas, when like Tyler ran his first competition at Mishawaka, and Josh ran his first competition in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Those were, they ended up great competitions. It was definitely kind of like, I had to be very, active those days, though, to, make sure everything was moving through. But so I'd say those are kind of opposite ends of the spectrum for me. Florida, that was an interesting one. So,
because
I think that was actually one of the most different ones I've organized or delegated. So that was kind of like my training for James LaChance to get a delegate in Florida. Yeah. So, which he's now a candidate delegate as well.
He is?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, so okay. Florida's has got a delegate now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Tampa, yeah?
Tampa, yeah. And that competition was interesting because it was in a science museum, kind of like Nationals.
Yeah.
But it was really cool, actually. They had a whole area, kind of, when you come in the front door, that was just our area.
That's pretty cool.
And like people that were walking around the museum, they were like, it was kind of like Nationals, but not perfect in the sense that they were like overlook areas. It wasn't like a whole 360 around like Nationals was, where the floors up that you could look down. But there were several like upper floor areas where you could see the whole competition, which was cool. We had a lot of spectators. They were just museum goers. Yeah. But they weren't in our way, which was really nice.
Yeah, I like that you can get a lot of exposure that way, while still maintaining a high level of efficiency.
Yeah, and we had a staff comp then too, because we got to go in Friday to set up, and we had like a day before staff comp. And I think that's what made it feel really different, because the next day, everything went super, super fast and super efficient. Mm-hmm. It was just, everything was in place, ready to go. So that was a really cool competition. Very different.
Yeah. So do you know about this CubeJectives site?
Yes, I do.
I know nothing about it.
Okay, so for the listeners at home or not necessarily at home, but for the listeners who might not know, there was a thread released on speed solving that had this page called CubeJectives. So you put in your 3x3 average or your WCID, and it'll tell you, based on linear regression, approximately what you should average at every other speed solving event.
Based on a baseline event, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah, it was terrible.
All right.
Not to be harsh, but it was...
Yeah.
Well, what would you change?
Would I change? Everything. Well, it's just really hard to do a catch-all sort of model for everything. So, the main problem with just, like, throwing a linear regression on any data is that in order, like, the math that goes behind making a line of best fit requires that several assumptions are met, and cubing data never fits those assumptions.
Yeah.
That's what...
Yeah. If you look at it, it's like an open cone, the scatter plot.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you don't want to see. And I actually made I think I made a great post.
Patting yourself on the back here, okay.
Yeah, good job, kid. I made a post that kind of like fixed the 3x3 and 4x4 relationship. So most, if not all, events have this problem of increasing variance. As you increase your times, your prediction gets less and less accurate. So, like, for example, fast solvers of 3x3 tend to also be really fast at 4x4, and you can get better guesses. There's less variance in those times. Whereas, a 25 or 30 second solver might be, a minute 30 or 5:30 on 4x4. Who knows?
That's really strange.
Well, I mean, I'm just throwing out numbers. That might not be true at all.
Okay.
But it's just that, when you get faster, the actual accuracy gets better.
Yeah.
Which is a problem because the regression, one of the main assumptions is that you have constant variance. So no matter what time you have in 3x3, for example, you should have about the same accuracy in predicting 4x4. So what I did in the post that I posted there's a lot of better ways you can do this. This is just kind of one thing that I thought of immediately when I saw the scatter plot, is to take log transformations of all the data. So you just take like natural log of their time.
Yeah.
And what that ends up doing is it stabilizes the variance.
Yeah.
So, but the problem is it was so increasing that I had to take 2 logs. So it was like log of 3x3 predicting log of 4x4. But then what you can do is the line of best fit then becomes a curve. You'll have like, so you'll fit that stuff, get your like slope and intercept for the log times.
Yeah.
And then you take e to the that equation, and then now then you have your line of best fit, which is mostly a straight line, but it's kind of curvy for low values, and it straightens out.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so what you find is that basically what happens when you do linear regression on this kind of funnel data is that you miss the peak of the funnel.
Yeah.
That's what happens. And so that's where the predictions just fall apart.
I'm super glad that I have not competed in 4x4, because I average about 12 to 13 at home on 3x3, and I average maybe like 125 on 4x4.
Yeah.
Kill the variance.
Yeah.
Kill the variance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one basic way. This is kind of the way that I think is most explainable to people who might have like at least a high school level math of understanding. So I could go into more things with like general linear models and, but I think that for the sake of my own sanity this late at night and for the sake of everyone else listening, we will not go there.
Okay, that's appreciated. So this next question's for everyone. Snug, marry, avoid. It's a variant on... You could probably figure it out. If you don't, then don't worry about it. Andrew Kang, Tom Barlow, Austin Reed.
What?
Ooh.
Do I have to assign one to each of them? Is that how this works?
So you'd snog one, you'd marry one, and you'd avoid one. Andrew Kang, Tom Barlow, Austin Reed. What'd you say? Got to think about it?
I'm ready for my answer, man.
Go ahead,
Waffle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would just snog like Tom because it's like a one night stand thing. I would be totally game. Marry Andrew Kang because his family runs a sushi place.
Yeah.
So I get all that deliciousness going on. And I would avoid Austin Reed because I'm sorry, because he was the last choice.
Aw. Sorry, Austin.
Yeah, just sorry, Austin.
Brandon, what do you think?
Dang. I would snug Tom, because why not? Marry Austin Reed, and then avoid Andrew like the plague because Scube.
Ouch.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know. I think that... So I'm like one of the least argumentative people in the world, so I think I'd avoid Tom. So sorry, Tom. You're cool, but I don't like arguing with people. So, and let's see.
He's gonna try to convince you that you do.
Yeah. I'll snog Austin just because he needs a little bit of love here. He's been avoided too much. And, I don't know. And I guess that leaves marrying Andrew Kang because, Scoop sucks.
The reasoning's great.
I held number 2 single in the world at one point. Scoop sucks.
I held number 1 single in the world for like 7 months.
Yeah, your fault I didn't have NAR.
The listeners can't see what's happening with my hands right now. It is wonderful.
It is implied.
All right, Mitch.
Andrew, I would have to like snog him because how much he just hates Scube. So just get that over with. Tom, I'm sorry, Tom, but I want to avoid you at all costs. And I guess I'm marrying Austin Reed because he's the one that I know the most. So
that's cute.
We're best buds. No,
Move out to Arizona. Yep.
It's the most annoying thing that too many competitors do, or that a competitor has done.
Okay, so my policy at competitions is never to announce how many people make it, because I like to do that based on where there's gaps as well as how much time we have. I don't want to say that we're doing this many people, because then it gives me less flexibility in scheduling later. I like to be open in that sort of flexibility.
Yeah.
It's different. It's kind of I like to, just because generally we tend to run ahead, and I like to be
Run
able,
ahead?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Michigan comps do tend to run ahead of schedule, so I like to have the ability to say okay, I was thinking this many, but let's allow more people, or we're behind. I'd like to have a smaller final.
Yeah, we're always scared that we're going to run obscenely behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Today-
I'm scared of it too. So it's nice to have the flexibility though to do that, but I cannot stand when people, the 3x3 round is just ended or something, and they come up and ask so did my son or daughter make it to the next round?
You get that question 5 times each competition.
Oh my god! It's no,
more.
they didn't. Go away.
What did they get for their average? I don't know. Then I don't know.
Yeah.
What do they get for their average? No.
That drives me crazy. And it's just maybe it makes me wonder, maybe I'll just set really small final rounds now, so nobody will ask me, and then expand later if need be.
Straight up, Basque only likes having 2 rounds of 3x3 most of the time.
Yeah.
And finals top 8.
Mm-hmm.
Did I make finals? No, did I make second round? Are you in the top 8 solvers? No.
Yeah, I understand that. I don't know. So, I don't know. I think that's kind of the main thing that came to mind right away. I can't really think of any other major...
I'm more focused on the parentheses over here, or that a competitor has done, the most annoying thing a competitor has done. I feel like doing those cube towers is really annoying.
Oh my god. World Championship. Let's make a 10-foot cube tower in the back with 11 by 11 on top.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a bad idea.
That was a good impression, by the way.
That was perfect, actually. I was really convinced.
Yeah, cube towers are terrible. My policy is whenever I see one, I go over and stop it immediately, just because it's always going to end in a giant crash.
Oh yeah, here in California we have earthquakes, so people usually don't do it.
That's fair enough.
No. If you could choose just one thing, what is the most important thing for competition organizers to focus on, both before and during or after the competition?
Ooh, okay, good question. So before, main thing I'd say to focus on is really just, a lot of people don't think that you need a plan going into your competition, but you really need to have some idea of heats, how you're going to staff things. Really, a lot of organizers just think they can just waltz in and they'll figure out judges on the fly and just call people up and it'll work.
That's awful.
I don't think I've ever run a competition without heats. So I think that's the main thing I would always focus on, is having a good system for setting that up. During the competition, so one of the things that personally I do a lot is float. And as an organizer or delegate, it's always good to be in a position where you can fix problems. And that's why pretty much 90% of the time at a competition, I'm either doing mostly running and occasionally data entry, because I'm always at a position where if there's a problem I need to get to, I can run and get to it.
Yeah.
So that's important to me for during. Yeah, so if you are an organizer, try to make sure that you can be the cube runner most of the time. Let's see.
So the next question is, what are your favorite and least favorite parts about being a delegate?
I really enjoy, as being a delegate, kind of just the spreading of cubing. I think the most fun times I've had is when I get to travel to new places that are kind of lacking in competitions, and it's fun to spread out the fun to new places. With the new competitions we had in Florida, Kansas, especially Kansas has been a really ever since they had a competition, it's just exploded with activity on the forums, meetups, and all of that.
Yeah, the meetups are a good indication of growth in an area.
Yeah. So they've only had one competition recently so far, but all the people that have gone there, they still meet up regularly,
that's really good.
Yeah, so it's cool to see that growing. Florida now, we got some delegates in the Southeast, maybe 2 if I move down there. So that's kind of the most cool aspect of being a delegate to me, is trying to expand cubing to areas that might not necessarily have competitions that frequently.
But the worst part of being a delegate, what do you think?
Worst part? Checking scorecards. Scorecards. It gets done. The usual thing I do is friends that have come for competitions, especially if this is like Ann Arbor, I just have people come back and hang out, and then we quickly do a score checking. And then, because if you have a bunch of people for like a small local competition, you can churn through score check in like 15 minutes. It does not take too long.
I usually do it alone.
It sucks. I've done it before.
Are you going to do all 150 alone?
No, 150 scorecards? No, it's more like 700 scorecards. This time, I'm probably going to be doing that alone as well, which is fine. Because like I've gone through all the Basque ones alone, and it's usually fine because I usually find the time within about a week to just get through them in small batches. Yeah, and it usually works out.
Yeah, it gets done, but trying to push that on and just trying to make sure it gets done with a large group of people for me is always the way I get that done. I don't know. I think that's pretty much the worst part. Also, trying to run an incident-free competition is really hard. Especially in terms right now with just scrambling mistakes. Scramble mistakes are terrible. And it's crazy how often they come up. And I really would like to see... So there's been a lot of talk right now to try to implement some sort of scramble checking policy, whether that is you actually designate someone to be the scramble checker, where before cubes send out, they have the scramble sheet in front of them. They have to look at the cube to make sure it's right before it goes out. Or you have scramblers sign off when they have checked the scramble, just so they have some sort of confirmation that makes them think about it in some sense. I think the scrambler checker is a lot of manpower to be put into one position. I'm kind of in favor of using just kind of signing on the scorecard that the scramble was checked.
Yeah, I think it makes it a very small difference overall in the amount of time that's spent in between timer stop and timer start.
And it makes people accountable. It gives information to me as to, if we find out something's a misscramble, if there's a repeated pattern as to who is causing those misscrambles. It's good information to know that, especially if there might be conspiracies and people intentionally giving wrong scramble. But you never know what could be happening behind the scenes with those scrambles, and I think that having scramble checkers makes scramblers both understand the importance of their role as well as the importance of being accurate.
Accuracy is stressed in the regulations anyway. It's required that scramblers check that their puzzles are properly scrambled.
Yeah.
And I feel like so many people just don't care.
Yeah, I heard at one competition a guy saying this person's coming up. I better make sure this one's right. And it was it was during 3x3. Like, wait, you're not checking to make sure all of these are right? What are you doing here?
Which aspects of cubing is most in need of change, and how would you like to change it?
Wow, this is open-ended. So I think the thing that I really am kind of upset about with cubing is that it's kind of hard to change this, but it's a very privileged activity. It's, the majority of people that go to competitions are very well off, and the problem with that is just that you need to travel, and in order to travel, you need to have the money and means to travel. And something that this is not something that I have the time to deal with right now, but something I'd like to see happen in the future is some sort of ability to apply for travel funding, in some sense, have some sort of cubing quote-unquote scholarship, that competitors could apply for in order to get funds to travel to competitions.
Would you mean like the higher ranking people, or just like the average Joe that would actually need it?
Yeah, someone that actually need it. Maybe like offer it to like people who haven't competed before, and the reason they haven't competed before is because they haven't had the means to do so. And I think that having some sort of that, like to bring a wider range of cubers, some with different backgrounds, different stories, I think would be really valuable to have this more diverse community.
Yeah. So this one is also very open-ended. What's the meaning of life?
42. Next question.
What is your favorite dessert?
Oh, that's hard. That's super hard.
The meaning of life was super simple, but the dessert, gotcha.
This is where I put my value in life.
Like, what do you really want right now?
So in Ann Arbor, there's a place called Pizza House, and they make great cinnamon sticks.
Oh, cinnamon sticks.
Cinnamon
I
sticks.
feel.
I do trivia every night with people in the stat department, and every Wednesday night, and I, on the reg, get their cinnamon sticks. So that's a pretty deep craving of mine.
So I think it's time for our favorite part of the show. Well, not really. Skype Team Blind?
So I'm just going to turn around and pretend like I'm in Michigan and you are in California, and it's like a Skype Team Blind. Okay. We're going to start with blue on top, yellow in front. Go blue.
Blue on top, yellow in front?
I got it.
Okay. All right, we ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's do an F prime, U prime, R prime, U2, R prime, F. Okay, we got cross. Okay, let's do F prime, U, F, Y, and then R, U, R prime. Okay, Y prime. Okay, now let's do fur earth. Okay, got it. And then U2. Insert back left, so that would be L, U prime, L prime.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Then, oh god, the lighting is terrible. We're gonna do an F, U2, F2. U prime, F. Okay. Now let's do an L prime, U prime, L. U2. Alright, insert front left.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
L prime, U, L.
Okay.
Okay, then U. Dead man.
What?
Oh, okay, I know that one. I know that one. Okay.
The dead man OLL, where like it's
No, we don't know.
it's okay. None of the corners are oriented.
I just oriented.
Edges are oriented, but none of the corners.
Is it soon, anti-soon, pi, L, U?
Pi.
It's pi.
That's what normal people call it.
RU2, R2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Then U prime, and it's an RA.
Which one's that?
Is that the good R or is that
It's the lefty one.
So it's okay, so where's the corner swap?
The corner swap's on the right side.
I don't know our perm.
Alright, then U2. RUF.
Oh, so close.
Okay.
Alright, I was off by a U prime.
What the
Wow, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
I have up to OLL, and that's it.
Well, how did this happen?
Probably got lost at Dead Man.
I got lost at our perm.
So thank you for that Team Blind kit. That was really fun, and we'll see you here immediately.
Immediately?
Yeah, we can't really sign you off because you're right next to them.
Oh, that's true. Well, I could evaporate.
That's a very helpful skill to have.
It is, actually, and I'm just going to do it right in front of everyone's very own eyes on CubeCast.
Wow. Impressive.
Check it out, I evaporated. Alrighty,
Nice.
It's been fun. I'm going to go float in the air now.
Bye, kids.
Yeah.
That was the best we've ever done on this show. All right.
Okay, thanks,
Which
kid.
brings us to our next least exciting part of the show, the puzzler. So this time, the puzzler has to do with money. specifically about individual retirement accounts in the U.S. They're called IRAs. We're going to be talking about Roth IRAs. So basically it goes like this. So John Johnson opens a Roth IRA on his 20th birthday and cashes out on his 70th birthday. At a 6% return rate, what is the maximum amount of money that John Johnson's account could be worth? So that was the puzzler. If you have any submissions for that, please send them to cubecast@gmail.com. And if you happen to be the first person to get it right, $5 from the cubicle.us is yours.
All right, that's been our show. It's been great. It was nice having Kit on. Isn't that right, Kit? Oh, wait, he evaporated. Damn.
Yeah, and our next guest?
Jaden McNeil.
Ooh.
So if you have questions to send for Jay, please send those to cubecast@gmail.com. Like everything that you guys send us. We appreciate all of the taglines you've received and all the listener questions and your feedback and your puzzler submissions. It's really vindicating for us to actually get interaction from the audience. It makes us feel like we're doing a good thing for the community. So thank you for that. And if you have any listener questions for Jay, any puzzler submissions, and any taglines to give us, please send those to cubecast@gmail.com. And until next time.
Thanks for listening.
Whatever.
That's going to be fun to edit.